Welcome to The Dying Breed. I'm Caleb Erickson, and I'm sitting here with Dusty Franklin from 5-Star Horseshoeing School. Maybe give you a little introduction about your history in horseshoeing and some of the things that you've accomplished throughout your career. And then,
Yeah, thank you. Dusty Franklin. I'm a third-generation farrier. I'm the owner and instructor of 5-Star Horseshoeing School. I've been an approved tester for 28 years. I've been an approved examiner in the AFA for 23 years. Competed all over, been on 5 national teams.
Wow.
And been blessed to have an amazing life because of horseshoeing.
and you have your AWCF.
I do, yeah. I got my journeyman CJF through the AFA, and then went on to do the Advanced Skills Farrier through the FITS Association and another international testing system. And then in 2017, did my AWCF through the Worcester Company Farrier in England.
So this is actually a really selfish question on my part. Do you think FITS is the best way to prepare?
It's if you are weak in practical portions of farriery, it's absolutely the way to go.
Okay.
I tell people that are weak in anatomy, it's not that. It's more of the AW, I would believe, is more of a 65% theory exam, 35% practical.
Okay.
Where the FITS is probably 75% practical, 25% theory.
Interesting. So where would a guy, when he eventually wants to go for that, where would he go?
Contact Chris Gregory at Heartline Horseshoeing School. He usually has one there every June or July.
And then for the theory, where would you go for that?
To study for that?
Yeah.
Oh boy. I would definitely get in with Todd Hanel's calls for sure.
Okay.
He's doing his AW, and so he can help you with that. Me, Chris, Cody, Travis Burns, Mitch Taylor. The list is, for anatomy wise, there's a lot of really good people out there.
Well, and just a little plug for your school for anyone that's looking or interested in being a farrier. You do a week-long pre-cert
Twice a year,
and then you have 2 opportunities, from what I understand, to take the test.
Well, no, just one. You can only have one AFA do one level at a time, or one deal at a time. So
no, I mean, if you didn't, so like you can take if you're going for CF, you can take it on Friday, and if you didn't pass a portion, you can take it again Saturday.
No.
Okay.
No, they pretty much did away with that.
Oh, really?
No one can do that anymore.
Okay.
You can do it. The candidate has to have, so say it's 70% to pass the practical portion.
Right.
They have to be 60 or higher to be able to retake it the next day.
Oh, okay.
So what we had was people that were doing back-to-back tests like that. Someone would be stopped on their trim on the first day and then stopped on their trim on the second day.
Oh.
And so the horse was kind of suffering because they just weren't ready yet.
Okay.
And so we kind of, as examiners and as a certification committee, we got together. Obviously, the horse is our number one,
Right.
thing we need to worry about. So we made it to where someone maybe just missed fixing a nail hole or something like that. They could have an opportunity to take it again if they did do that. But honestly, with them changing the rules, no one this year did it again.
Okay.
So no, it's week-long practical. I have usually at least 10 people come in to help for the week.
Okay.
That are at all levels, different types of people. That way we make sure that one of us has the personality and skills to get with every person that's at the pre-cert. And then we have one exam on the weekend. And then I do that twice a year though. Always end of March, end of September.
So tell me a little bit about like your history. Like how'd you said you're the third generation. How did it start? What was it like growing up? Where'd you grow up? Things like that.
Grew up in, when I got into farriery, I was 14. And so by then we were living in between Houston and Galveston in a town called Alvin, Texas.
Okay.
And most people know Alvin because of Nolan Ryan. So that's where he was. I graduated with his oldest boy, Reed. And great little town, for being in Texas. And they
Don't let Texans hear
for all
that.
the Texans that are listening to this, I'm sorry I talk so fast. So my parents still, they've moved up by me 13 years ago. They still drive there to tag their vehicles.
Really?
Texans are diehards, man.
They do think Texas is the best, and apparently Texas. If you look on a map in Texas and the rest of the United States, Texas, like, we're all really little. They like. Yeah. Have you seen those maps where the state is like blown up?
Yep.
It's like,
and also Texas, I believe, can succeed by itself still to this day. It could be its own, absolutely.
Really?
They bless us with their presence, as they say in America. So, but growing up there, I started shoeing with my dad when I was 14, and then I always wanted to be a horse trainer. I was real blessed. My parents, they gave everything they had to my sister and I for horses. I can remember my dad worked 7 years, no hobbies, no days off, nothing. Wow. 7 years shoeing horses so that my sister and I could go down the road.
Wow.
And I graduated high school and left home in 91. And I remember talking to him on the phone in 97, and they just got the last horse show bill paid off.
Wow.
So they sacrificed everything for us. But, I've been world champion. I've been, number 2 all around the nation. I was really, and we did it on, old stock trailer and a horse that we bought as a yearling that.
And you were number 2 and world champion in which events?
Showing horses. So so back then I'm old, so like you use the same horse in 13 events. Back then it's not like today.
Right.
I have young kids today that pull into the shop to get their horses shod, and they got a 6-horse trailer because they've got a head horse, a heel horse, a pole horse, a barrel horse, a goat tying horse. Right. Not like that. But we rode the same horse in every event back then, and. So I've been reserve world champion in horsemanship. I won the world in showmanship, reserve world champion goat tying. Just did it all back then.
Do you think that's part of your success is horse handling?
Absolutely. My dad is an amazing horseman, and my grandfather raised horses and trained race horses, and my dad grew up horseback, and I grew up horseback, and I think that was a huge thing growing up, showing and riding and training. And I lived at trainers every summer. My parents always made a joke that every year they took me a trainer a little bit farther away, but I always found my way back to start school. So but I really do believe that being able to have situational awareness. Horses are just like people. Some people you hug and some people you poke in the nose.
Yeah.
And you just got to know which ones to do what to.
Yeah, because there's horses that you swear you want to just kick them right when you get there, and they seem to do better.
Yeah.
And then there's other ones you do that, you're never going to touch them.
They'll meet you halfway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on in.
So you're showing, you wanted to be a horse trainer.
Yeah.
And then you end up in the farrier world. How did that?
Well, I think too, I realized I left home, or I graduated, I was 17, and I ended up in Tucson, Arizona, riding horses for some people, and then just shoeing, to eat.
Right.
And I made the mistake one day of figuring out what I was making an hour riding, getting up at 4:30 in the morning to feed and clean stalls, and then saddling and unsaddling 25 head a day, and then doing the last check in blankets that night at 10:30 or 11, and I was making $1.21 an hour. And when I added it up after 6 months, and I'd watch, I was in Tucson then, there was a farrier who'd come in there named Wade Sublette. He's still a farrier there. And I remember watching him back his old 88 Ford truck in there, and he'd be there in the morning and make $800.
Yeah.
And I thought, and he had a forge, so I didn't grow up with my dad didn't have a forge. So he did have a forge, an old forge, but we just used it to put borium on horseshoes.
Yeah.
That's all we used it for down in Houston. So, I was like, wow, okay. So I started paying a little bit more attention to that. Well, then through that transition, I got a riding job in Mound City, Kansas. Right. And so I packed everything up and moved to Kansas. And I had a farrier. I put some cards out, shoeing, hot, cold, corrective,
Yeah, oh yeah.
And so a guy there named Charlie Comstock from Nevada, Missouri, he saw my card and called me in that December of 1993. And he said, hey, I saw your card in the feed store, and he said, I do a forging class at Fort Scott Community College. Starts, January 94. January, it's every Monday night. And I said, okay, well, how much is it? And he said, it'd be $60. I said, oh man, sounds good. I just don't have $60, but thanks for the call. So I was talking to my dad a few days later on the phone, and my dad said, I'll send you that $60. So it'd be cool if you took that class. I was like, you sure? And he said, yeah. So my dad mailed me a check for $60, and I got in that class, and that was my Christmas present that year. And
wow.
I met Charlie Comstock that first Monday of January of 94, and I always laugh at everyone because I teach it in the school first day too. Is I just took a piece of bar stock and made a ring, welded it very first day. Now to me, it was an egg bar, but it was just a ring. And and then Charlie shod for a lot of high-end show people. Well, he found out I'd come from the horse show world, and so anyway, he offered me a job right then.
Really?
And so I started working for him 5 days a week, and just like we all did, if you had an apprenticeship, it went from 5 days a week to 4 days a week to 3 days a week to by 2 years later, I just only had 1 day a week. I could afford to be with him. I had a full book, but through those couple years, he helped me through my certified and through my journeyman. Chris Gregory just opened his school down at Heartland, and I went down and did his week-long clinic just like I do now for people, and took my journeyman, and I passed everything first try.
Wow.
And I got lucky. My certified story is a pretty funny story. I had an old 2-horse trailer, and I loaded one of Charlie's 2-year-old studs up that never been shod, and drove down there to Gregory's very first cert, and pulled in there and unhooked the trailer and tied that old stud to it, and backed my truck around, got everything hooked up, so I do my certified. And of course, back then, the horseshoe and show horse guys back in the day, if they didn't sweat little blood shoeing pleasure horses, you didn't really show them. So was being taught what a horse's foot could take. That's what I was being taught at that time.
Wow.
And so anyway, I'm down there just carving away like we did every day, and blood. So this thing's dripping off the end, and I was like, all right, well, I heard that if you quick them, it goes over, and that'll examiner come out there. He said, oh, son, here, let me show you a trick. And he threw my tongs in the forge, and there's a pile of sole on the ground, half-inch deep, and he grabbed a thin layer of sole and put it right up there where it was bleeding, and took those hot tongs and just welded that right back over. Quit bleeding.
No kidding.
Go ahead and finish up. And I shaped my shoes and finished shoeing. Got me certified that day.
I'll be damned.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. And so
I didn't know you could.
Yeah, no, it's a great trick. So if you got one, I'm sure if you got one, you got soul there. So you can and you can just pull it up there and just lay it right on there and get your hot dogs. It'll melt right back over it.
My mentor Paul McGann says that we're paid 10% for what we take off and 90% for what we leave.
Amen. That is so true. But when you're young, and let's see, I would have been 21 there, so I would have been 20 when I started this fortune deal. I started for him, So I just turned 21 when I got my certified, and so then found out there was competitions, so then got into competing,
right.
And so anyway, went around the next year and passed my journeyman down there, did the week-long thing and passed my journeyman. And I remember Chris telling me, because I'd have a good day, because I really didn't know what I was doing. I'd have a day where I knocked out of the park, and then the next horse looked like I'd never shot a horse. And so I had a terrible go on that Friday. And I was bummed out because the week was over. And Chris was like, no, Dusty, you timed this perfect. You're going to do great tomorrow. And he was right. I had 20 minutes left and Palomino horse and shot it up right there. So so in all of this now, I got my dad would go to Durango, Colorado and do these dude horses twice a year. He'd go up there and shoot 125 horses. And so backing up a little bit, when I was young, I met him once and was going to want to learn more about nailing. So I met him in Colorado there to do all those horses. So we did 100 head in 4 days. So we shot 25 a day, him and I. Wow. So he would nip and shape. And what I mean by shape back then was open a Malaysian shoe, open a lick or close it a lick. And then he would put the heel nails in. I would come back and drive the other 6 and clinch. And
you were putting 8 nails.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. Trail ride, that lane thing is at a trail ride deal in the mountains. If you lost a shoe up there, they'd have to get a helicopter to come bring them back down. You couldn't afford to lose a shoe, So these things have been turned out in the National Forest all winter, and then they got them up and we'd shoe them. So half of them be, a Scotch hobble down on their side,
Oh,
it wasn't like they stood good or anything, They only got shod twice a year, whether they needed it or not. So, yeah, I did most of. I didn't know you shot horses standing up when I first started. Yeah. So, but anyway, I remember my hands were so sore. I had about 3 colts. I was riding back at the house then, and I couldn't ride horses for 10 days. Couldn't hold the reins. My hands hurt so bad from dropping all the nails and clinching. So anyway, just experiences like that. Well, as I got into this, my dad, he had got it certified sometime before, and so I'd call him on. This is all before cell phones.
Right.
He said, you guys are both too young to know, but we used to have phones attached to the wall and stuff. So, and then you had this little box that you left messages in. So you'd get home at night from shoeing all day, and part of your job as a farrier back then was you had to spend an hour once you got home returning phone calls and scheduling before you got to spend time with your family or eat dinner or all that stuff because you didn't want to call after hours. And so the most frustrating part for being a farrier back in that era was you'd driven by a place 45 minutes away that had a shoe off, but you didn't know it because you didn't the message till you got home. So, but anyway, I'd call him on his answer machine back then. Of course, I'm young punk, and I'd be like, "This is Dusty Franklin, certified journeyman farrier." I just didn't know what Jerry Franklin, just certified farrier, is doing today. Anyway, he got tired of that, So he started practicing, and I bought him a forge, gave to him, and he started practicing. And then when he was 50 years old, been shoeing horses 27, 28 years, he got his journeyman.
Wow.
And so it's pretty cool. And he tells a lot of people today, he turned 76 last Sunday. So he's like, yeah, he said, I've been shoeing horses, about 35, 36 or 25, 26 years. He goes, but I sure nailed on a lot of iron before that. That's what he always tells everyone, So, but he was an approved tester up until just a few years ago.
Really?
And still goes out every day.
I've seen your pictures when you guys go out. You said something. I've been following you for a long time. In fact, you were probably the first person I found online that open. That's actually how I ended up meeting and going eventually with Paul McGann. Paul McGann called me. I was driving up to the vet clinic with one of my horses, and he calls and he says, "Hey, it's Paul." And I'm like, "Horseshoer Paul?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "There's a Dusty Franklin clinic tomorrow in Boise. You want to go?" And I was like, I'd been following you online, and I didn't understand most of what you were doing, but I knew there was something different than what I was doing, and so I'm like trying to figure it out just by looking at videos and watching and reading what you wrote. And I said, "Paul, I'm not blowing you off. I don't mean it. I'm not," because sometimes if you tell a guy no, that's the last time.
Yeah.
And Paul told me later, he goes, "I don't call people."
Yeah.
He goes, "They call me." He goes, I gave up calling people. They usually say no. He goes, "But I met one of your clients. She said you were super discouraged and you'd just been burned a couple of times with different farriers, and you wanted to, she said you just needed some help, and so I just made the decision to call you." And so that's actually the reason that I got my CF and I'm now working on my journeyman, is because of your clinic, technically, because Paul called and asked if I'd go with him. And then that was kind of the opening. We came to the convention last year. But you said something super interesting on one of your posts, and that was you said you just started shoeing horses in 2017, and I find that that mindset is interesting. And then I was filming that other podcast the other night, and you talking about fit and the way you view the horse hoof is just, it's over my head really, but maybe walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I think too, it's interesting. They were talking about balanced hind feet, and I was smiling because I've yet to find any text ever that tells you how to trim and balance hind feet, which I find that pretty interesting.
There's very little research on hinds.
Yeah, we don't know anything about it. So, even if you dig deeper into farriery, as long as we've been shoeing horses, 1610, or Persians are the ones that started, doing horses' feet that long ago when they were conquering the world. There's only 27 peer-reviewed papers on farriery.
Really?
That's it. Interesting, huh?
That is fascinating.
So it's funny how, it's not funny. It's for me, all the years in now, 32 years in, and I've spent most of my time as a farrier to try to understand and be better, through all these years and going and, and things now that are important to me are so different than what most people ask me about, right. And that's why when you were in there the other night, I was trying to explain to him anatomically why they do that, right? So that was the difference for me. So from a guy that had already been on 5 national teams, I had been asked to judge national championships in 4 different continents and been all over the world, and I didn't even know where the tibia was. Right. So I was terrible farrier, right? I could talk to people and make people feel like they want to do more and all the other stuff, but I definitely wasn't a good horseshoer. I could put shoes on feet.
Right.
So I think that, and what I had done is, for me, you had said the day that you have a photographic memory, right? I don't have photographic memory, but I have a great memory. Right. And so for me, I can tell you about a bay horse that I shot in 1996 on the right hind, what happened to me, or like if I have a story of I remember, first time I actually was going to wear gloves, because my dad was the type of guy that if you wore gloves, then you're a girl. So I remember I finally got a pair of roping gloves, and I'm in this little barn showing a bay 2-year-old Western Pleasure stud, and it was cold in Kansas City, and I went to jerk the off hind shoe off, and those slipped out, and those rays came back and busted my lips on both sides of my nose. Blood was running everywhere. It was about 6 degrees, and so anyway, I can remember. I know where those people live. So,
oh wow!
And this has been in the 90s, so I just have that kind of memory. So that's helped me a lot. But so what with that, I've been crippled horses so many ways. Instead of me going into a horse anymore about, oh, I know how to shoe this one. Now I know the 1,000 ways not to shoe it.
Right.
And that helps me make decisions now. And I believe most farriers, when they get to that point in their career, I think this is when they really start learning. Right? And so when people say, there's phenoms in our industry that have just, you look at Cody Franklin, Cody Gregory by far, he's in a league of his own,
right.
And, but I'm really anxious. I've been friends with Cody. I've known Cody since he was 4 years old, and have been blessed to be on teams with him, and blessed to call him a great friend. I wouldn't be anywhere where I am today without Chris and Cody Gregory, by far. Wow. And I think that I'm anxious to hear Cody 10 years from now on his perspective. I know where he is now. I know where he was 10 years before that. I know where he was 10 years before that.
Right.
And they're not even on the same planet.
Right.
And I think that's what makes people like that, apart from everyone else, is someone that every day they realize, like for me, so I started understanding more about shoeing horses and not feet in 2017. So now I feel like I'm in 3rd grade out of 12 now in 2024. Right. So one of my really good strengths, and when I was going through the AW, we had a group of us, and examiners and everything would say, man, your ability to look at a horse and define conformation is amazing. I see things now. It wasn't because I had studied anatomy a lot, right, at the time, but it's just I'd been around and on horseback. I've been around horses since I was this tall. I got my first horse when I was 3.
Do you think, because I've noticed a trend. It's funny listening to all the different guys and talking to everybody here. We all have a very similar story. Like I didn't, show horses, but I cowboyed, I rode, and that's how I got into shoeing, because it was expensive. So I thought I'd shoe my own, whack and tack, same deal, and all 8 nails, because we're going to the mountains, and I didn't know what a toe clip was or a quarter clip, and then I got into, then I was like, oh shit, maybe I better learn a little more. So then I went and hung out with some different guys, and I'm still whacking and tacking and not fitting feet. What do they say? Covering.
Yeah.
I was covering a foot, not fitting a foot.
Yeah.
And and now I'm trying to learn to fit a foot rather than, and I'm not there. I think it's a life. Maybe that's what draws certain individuals to being a farrier, is you never figure it out.
Yeah.
Just
like Cody. But second that he realized that this wasn't I got this sorted out. Yeah. He literally got kicked out of, I forget what the race car thing was back when he was a kid, but Call of Duty. Literally hijacked the deal and got kicked out of it in 3 months when they wouldn't let him play.
Wow.
So that's how he does things, and he got into this and was like, wait a minute. Right. Oh, I got you. I'm coming. And he's still running as fast as he can. He ain't got anywhere yet. Like most of us.
Yeah. Well, but do you think, what was it? Winston Churchill said, there's nothing so good for the inside of a man as the outside of a horse. And after talking to everyone this weekend, I find that the best farriers I've seen ride horses or have ridden horses. And they have a better, because I see some now, I've met a couple that never ridden before. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they miss a little bit, because they don't understand movement. Like they've never sat on one and felt him move.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's like everything else you do. The more aspects of something that you can do yourself, the better you're going to be at it. So like my oldest son is a mechanical engineer. He designs convention centers and hospitals, huge buildings, but he builds metal buildings by himself on the weekend. And I said, why do you choose to do that? And he said, well, if I can't structurally build on my own, I'm not going to be as good as sitting at a computer designing them.
Which he's probably a good engineer, because most don't do that. My sisters are both going for engineer, and you know, I've been on the construction side. We spent more time fixing their ideas.
He's so frustrated. I just talked to him on the phone, and they had to manufacture 1,300 brackets because of their the way the guys in the shop cut out the trusses. So he had to go back and design 1,300 brackets to fix their mistake on a huge building.
Oh shoot!
Yep. So, yeah, I get those, but he enjoys the challenge of that,
right?
You know, and the structure part of it and all that stuff is neat. But that's how he thinks. And like, here's Cody now, you know, and Cody's young, he's 25.
Right, you know, that's insane.
Yeah,
man.
And he went to his AW clinics, which spurred your conversation,
right?
You know, and like, so that's the thing when he finally decides, like he's that way, when he finally decides on his terms, what has always been Cody's terms, by the way, from the time he was born. Literally came out of his mom and peed on her. So that's literally set it up from the beginning. Like we knew right away. So
dominant.
Yes, he's the middle child, 1,000%. Goes into every category that says middle child. He's the poster of that. And so, and it makes him who he is. It makes him amazing. And, you know, it makes him strong-willed. Makes him independent.
Right.
You know, and when he decides that he wants to move forward in higher learning, then he'll just go do it.
So, you know, I know a little bit, but I want to touch on this, especially for young people out there, which young people as a whole anymore tend not to be. Not beliefs, but priorities have changed a lot. You know, it used to be. I was talking to a vet. He's been a vet for 50 years. I just interviewed him a couple weeks ago, and he said, "Work, life, family balance." He goes, I'd never heard that term until like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
And he goes, we didn't talk about that when he goes, we worked.
Yeah.
We didn't. So you have a great relationship with your children. And, you know, I'm starting out. I just had my first son. How do you balance passion and drive? Like, you've had some, and we'll touch on it later, but you've had some difficulties in the last year. How do you balance that? What's your advice there? How do you hit the top of your career but not wreck your personal life in the same?
I think it's how you value your time. Number one, and I think the biggest thing that we've quit in today's world with computers and iPads and phones and all that stuff is we lead by example, right? So if you always show your children, and when I say show, that means no words. If you always show your children who they should be, then they will never know anything else. They don't understand when you tell them.
Oh.
You can talk to them about scripture. You can talk to them about motivational books. You can do all that stuff in the world for them. But if they don't have a constant picture in their mind of who they should be, they're never going to be that person. Wow. And so if you show them, just like my parents showed me, my parents are from that area you're talking about. My mom and dad, I never saw them in the daylight.
Wow.
Because they worked. And they showed what a day's work is. You know, and they understood that work came first. Without work, you didn't provide food. Right. You didn't have a roof over your head. You didn't get to have show horses.
Right.
Right? Now, they were really good because they provided all of that, but we had to take care of them.
Right.
I never flew to a horse show and had my trainer meet me there with the horses in the trailer. And when I went to a hotel and swam with my friends, they were riding my horse and feeding it and cleaning stalls. That's not how I was raised.
Right.
We did all that ourselves. We stayed in this old horse trailer that my dad redid for us. And our horse trailer had a 110 unit underneath the gooseneck part that you plugged in. Our house in Houston did not. So think about that.
Really?
Houston, Texas.
Wow.
So luckily I'm old. We had water beds then. And so they would be really cool when you didn't have the heater on and had fans so you could sleep at night.
Wow.
But it also made it to where we didn't want to be in the house because the house was hot.
Right.
So we were raised outside. And I raised my kids the same way. They weren't allowed in the house until it was dark.
Right.
There was no going in and playing video games. Now, if you stayed outside till it was dark, did all your chores, took your shower, got your stuff ready for the next day before 9 p.m., whatever time you had between that ending point and 9 p.m., you could play your games or do whatever you want to do. So it wasn't let me go play and, oh, by the way, you need to go shower. It's 9 o'clock.
Right.
They had to make choices, positive choices of, if I do this, this, and this, then I get to do what I want. Today's kids aren't that way.
There's no consequences.
Well, they weren't taught to be proactive.
Right. They're always reactive.
Very reactive. Now, everything's reactive and there's no critical thinking skills. There's no problem solving skills because all they do is, hey, Google. That's it.
Right.
No one in today's world backs up and tries to figure out why something happened. Oh, this happened. How do I fix it?
Do you read a lot? Do you?
Not at all.
No. Oh,
I read Westerns, things like that. I read to step into a world that I wish I lived in. To where the good guy always won.
right.
Always got the pretty girl. Always rode off in the sunset on the best horse.
So Louis L'Amour?
All the time, yep. I have all of them. Every book he ever wrote, hardback. All the Hardy Boys, all the Nancy Drews, all of them, yep.
So that we have that in common. So I have, I'm a weird person, but I have I have both the softback because I bought them because I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And I have every one that he wrote there. And then I went out and found them later. I found the leather, the hardback edition,
Yep.
but they have the maps in the front. And I love that because I can see where
Yep.
he went all over that country.
Yep.
I actually think he's very well written. Like you actually can learn
Absolutely.
a lot from, and I do think I would argue, not that everybody has to, but I would argue that's something else that our society, we live in we read a blurb. Nobody sits down long enough and takes a minute. We live in the 30-second world.
Yep.
Which I'm guilty as everyone else. I sit
too.
there and scroll.
Yep. I call it the Walmart version.
Yeah.
Everything's in one spot. You just go there and get what you need. You don't have to think out your day to plan it to where I need to go here and accomplish this. No, I need to be over here at this time to accomplish that. Now it's just like, oh, I'm in here. Let me get all this done so I can go off.
Do you think the lack of interaction too, because you go to one spot, you don't talk. I notice that, like my wife, it annoys my wife because I go in and I'm a talker anyway.
Yeah,
but
same.
I'm like, how are you doing today?
Yeah.
Like, all that, like, and it takes me longer to get everywhere, but I know the cashier.
Yeah.
I'll go to a certain cashier because I've talked to him multiple times, and that's my cashier.
Yep. Yeah, no one wants to, like, I've been flying around doing clinics for 25 years. And man, it's interesting now how, and I'm just as guilty now. I have my earphones in and, I just do my thing and hang out. And I used to love to fly because I got to talk to people.
Right.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things, but it's not that way anymore.
Really.
People have really changed and everyone's been over, everywhere you go. And, even here, it was interesting, looking around at lectures, just taking into account of how many people were just sitting on their phone. I watched a thing. I couldn't sleep last night. I was so nervous about this morning. And I was listening to a guy, and it was really cool to talk to him because I'm just as guilty. I thought about it today because I had this sitting here. So he talked about if you're talking to someone or interviewing like this, and I have my phone in my hand, do you really think that you're the most important thing to me right now?
Wow.
It's my phone because I'm holding. Even if you think you're being polite and you turn it down, do you still think that you're more important than my phone? Absolutely not.
Right.
This is your podcast. You should be the most important thing to me right now. So
right, and vice versa.
Yep, exactly. I'm showing you disrespect from having this here or in my hand.
Wow.
So it was interesting talking about that. That was just 2:00 this morning.
So you did this morning. You did a little service. It's Sunday morning here, or Saturday morning.
Yeah, I did the devotional for the convention Friday morning here.
Friday morning. Yes, I spent
did the church devotional this morning for the AFA.
And that's something very new for you.
Brand new.
And how did that come about? Like, walk us through that.
Wow. The short story is I was diagnosed with cancer this year, and I went through the radiation and chemotherapy part. It was gut wrenching, hard, sick months, and you're laying in this empty house on the floor, being sick for hours on end, and hoping that you're going to live long enough to see your daughter walk down the aisle or hold a grandchild someday.
Wow.
Or anything like that. And then learning about the Bible through all of this and realizing it's the most peaceful you've ever felt.
I would argue that I don't care who you are, all you're looking for is that peace. And I would argue that that's where you're going to find it.
Yep.
I mean, maybe people find it a different way. I said this on while we were walking over here. I've interviewed, I would say, arguably probably the top 3 in the U.S. Top 3 guys, most influential guys for sure. If you mention your name or Chris Gregory or Craig Turnka's name,
Yeah.
most people that are in this industry kind of know,
Yeah.
right? And you have one thing in common, and that is that each one of you has a faith, and that's pretty impressive, really, and makes you realize how important maybe, and I think it's important to success. Have you always had a faith, or is that something kind of new?
No, sir. I was obviously raised by 2 people that live very godly,
Right.
but we didn't go to church. They didn't talk about that. But their morals, work ethic, how they raised us to be, manners, all that, all
Right.
portray us to be successful Christians.
Right. Judeo-Christian ethics. You were raised in a Judeo-Christian.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's something that I raised my kids in without the church. Now,
Right.
living in a small town, they all chose to go to church. I can remember Wednesday nights they were at church.
Really?
We drop them off, go have dinner, pick them up.
Really?
Yeah, kids, and they wanted to be there. Cody would be the one that would actually go with me when I was trying to reach out, trying to find happiness or peace that I wasn't finding and I didn't have for years. He would be the one that would get up and go with me.
Really?
Yep, I've got plenty of pictures of me and him,
What?
doing that. And I think I don't know what, and that's before he was into horseshoeing or anything
Really?
like that,
Wow.
and he's just a kind soul. He sees, I know it's got to be a burden, I see the best in people. I honestly think that Cody sees people struggle.
Wow.
I really do, because he is always the first one to reach out to see if they need anything. The worst people, the people that treat him the worst, he tries to help the most.
Wow.
And I think he was born, he would probably never say it or probably disagree with me if he was here, but that's looking at him all the time and how he does things. I really believe that he sees the worst, and so he feels the need to help those the most. Where a lot of us, if you're fun and have a blast,
Right.
you want to go hang out with that guy. It's easy,
Right.
So I think that he has whether he knows it or not, that's what I think.
Really?
Looking at him. Yeah.
And you say you see the best in people, and so last year I'd just been watching you on Facebook, really, and honestly, coming from a small town Idaho, homeschooled, whack and tack, didn't know anything, being at this convention and meeting everyone, I've never been treated badly. Everyone's super kind, but I remember last year, you never realize who you touch until to be honest, until you're gone. And then you look around your funeral or wherever it is or whatever, and you realize how many people care.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was sitting there, probably one of the highlights of my convention last year was coming here, or it was in Reno last year, and Paul's like, I want you to meet somebody. And you were standing there, you were busy, you and Cody were doing a go or something like that. And I shook your hand and I said, I have a question. I asked the question on whatever, and I know you're busy. Like, I didn't expect you, like, you're busy. And you just took 30 seconds and answered that question. And it wasn't like, oh, you're stupid, nothing like that. But it was I walked away from that going, that is probably one of the humblest, nicest dudes I've ever met.
Thank you.
And I think that everybody I've talked to here, and that your name has come up, that is the general feeling. And then listening to you and how you see the best in people. Is that just something, did you develop that? Have you always been that way? Or is
I think so. I think that really the truth of it is, thank God the good Lord takes care of children and idiots. So I'm good to go. I literally got a free pass my whole life. Okay. So when you wake up every day and realize that, you're getting carried and you've been blessed beyond measure. Like, I got into showing and stuff when I've always been able to be good at things, never the best. Got on a race team when I was 5 years old. I never won anything, but I was competitive enough to stay on the top 4.
Right.
As a little kid, right? And then I got a show horse when I was 8. Made it all the way to state in the state of Colorado, which is really hard to do. My first year.
Wow.
On a POA ugly. I mean, this pony was so ugly. I went into a halter class once, and I was the only one, and the judge gave me second. That's how ugly this pony was. And then moved to the state of Texas when I was 11 on the same pony, pretty much outgrown him, and make it all the way to state in the state of Texas on an ugly old POA pony. Right?
Wow.
And it was all him. He was amazing horse. But then got right in, and so I wanted this paint horse. We went to go look at this paint horse, and the guy had to get a 2x4 to walk in the stall to halter him because he'd chase you out.
Wow.
And my parents looked at this thing. Now, this horse was $4,000 in 1984 or 5.
That's like that. That'd be like 30 grand.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah,
today,
30, 40 grand a day. And 2 people that didn't have 8 cents, if they begged all day somewhere. So, but I wouldn't look at another one. My parents said after that. That was the one I had to have. And then so bought him, got him. The first year I showed that horse, of course I did. We never had an arena. We didn't have a horse didn't stay with the trainer. When I would go to the trainers in the summer, it's because my parents couldn't afford a trainer. So I would clean stalls and ride other horses for them, and they'd buy my food. I would live there so I could learn to ride my horse. So that's how I did. So I'm a big believer in that as well, right? So I had a horse. I owned 1, but I took care of 20.
Wow.
And so I think having the summers like that were really good for me to appreciate what I got. So if I did all my stuff right, then the trainer would let me get my horse out, and then I would get a lesson at the end of the day. But I had to work the 10 hours first. So where today everyone's just like, I want to go do my horse. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Let me go in the air conditioning and they play my phone.
And they don't appreciate it.
Yeah, so they don't understand how lucky they are to be there, right? So I think having that too, and then having parents that gave us consequences. I don't know if you guys were in there this morning, but it was, I love the way my dad to this day, he would ask you as an adult to do something. Hey, I need you to clean stalls when you get, one time I remember I was 8 years old and I didn't water the horses. And he came in there and asked me a direct question, which I learned later on. When anyone asks you a direct question, they already know the answer. Okay, so just a lie. But I was probably 46 when I got that sorted finally. No. And he said, "Did you water the horses?" And, "Oh, yes, sir." "Okay." I hadn't. The water was dry and tumped over when he got home from shoeing all day. So that Saturday morning, wakes me up 6 o'clock, and breakfast on the table, nothing to drink. And he had loaded up the push mower in the truck. We went down to trailer park, and I knocked on doors, explained to people I was mowing lawns for free that day, and got you to mow your lawn. Mowed lawns all the way till lunch. Ate chips and a sandwich, no drink. Mowed lawns all afternoon. Got home, and at supper he let me have something to drink. Never yelled at me. Nothing like that. Just explained to me that, hey, now this is how horses feel when you don't water them. Think about that next time you need to make a decision.
Wow.
So he was really good at stuff like that. He would make you think on why, and he's the one that really, he taught me. He would spank you with the belt. That's just how life was. When you made mistakes or didn't listen, then you had consequences. But he always would sit down first on the edge of the bed, and and be like, okay, this is why you're getting a spanking today. And what made you choose that? Of course, you're a kid, I don't know, and everything like that. But looking back now, it really taught, like he said. And then when I called him, found out they were pregnant, And he just said, hey, teach them the difference right and wrong. How could you go wrong that way? Just hope when they need to make that decision that they make the right one.
Right. Well, it's kind of crazy because when my dad would always ask me, what were you thinking? And to be fair, my answer was usually, I don't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
So my kids, the two things that they were never allowed to say to me when they were children were I can't and I don't know.
Really?
Absolutely. Now, you do know. You're a smart person. You have a brain. You just don't want to think about it. And so I said, now you get a minute and think about it and give me an answer.
Wow.
And that's what I would do, and because those are two words that'll cripple someone.
Oh.
Two words that'll get you fired.
Right.
Two words that someone won't want to be in your presence.
Right.
Right? So those are two phrases that I would never allow my children to say growing up.
Wow. That's actually something. Is it talking to you because I'm sitting here thinking about my son. I'm like, oh shit, I better write all this crap down so I can. What with your, because you started, when did you start your horseshoeing school?
I started January of 2007.
Okay, and do you think the way you were raised made you a better educator?
No, not by any means.
Really?
It's so funny. How I was a lot different person back then. I kind of let a little bit of that out this morning in the church service was, I was hard-headed by God, I'll show you, and what made me a terrible instructor for many, many years was the fact that if you didn't put forth the same effort that I put forth, you were a terrible person. So I judged you, and that was wrong on me looking back, Some people went to it like that's what they needed. They needed to see someone putting in all the effort, right? But on the ones that chose not to see it, I was terrible to them, and I shouldn't have been. I should have been good enough to know other ways to educate them, and I feel like I'm a lot better now. Just in the last maybe 5-6 years, I feel like I've really turned the corner to be able to keep giving. It's funny, as an educator, I don't think people teach people. I think people give people opportunity and hoping that they take it.
Okay.
I think that's a good teacher. So, I don't tell people what to do anymore. I suggest all day. So even farriers that come ride with us, there's a young man, Logan Carson, who's been a godsend to me and my family in the school and this year. And he's funny. He's from Texas originally, and he would come up and spend a week at a time every 6 weeks for the last 3 years. Ended up moving just down the road from us in January, right before all this happened. I don't know. The Lord works in mysterious ways, because he literally just devoted his life to the school this year because I got sick, and he took them every day, and never hey, do you need me to cover? It was, what days can I shoe my horses next week? Hey, I need you to pay me. No. I'd have to hide money or give it to his wife or whatever else he would take money. Like, this guy just devoted his whole life to making sure that everything that he'd been believing in coming up and getting up. So I never charged him to come. I don't charge anybody to come. You come for a week. I've invited you thousands of times. Like, I just want people to be better. And if you come and come from your families and your life of making money just to be better, I want my students to see that.
Right.
Because just like I was raised, if they see people all the time that are doing things to be great, then they're going to choose to be great. So as a teacher, I think that one thing that I used to do is I used to tell people, and if you didn't do it my way, then there's going to be consequences.
Right.
And so once I got more educated and went through this AW process and learned how uneducated I was,
right,
I really realized that I needed to change who I was. And my mom wrote me a letter, and that I still read quite a bit. And the gist of the letter is, son, your life will be a lot more complete when you quit expecting the things from other people that you expect from yourself, because not everyone pushes like you do. And so as soon as I started doing that, it really helped me as an educator to try to figure out me to back up and want to know why and how to set people up where they were. Because everyone learns differently, right?
Right.
And so I know I read a lot of stuff on the military, because who else has been teaching people longer than the military?
Right.
Nobody, right? So I read books on how the military teaches, so that you got your 3 ways people learn, blah, 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 that anyone get old. But which you, as a good educator, I believe, you can't have a curriculum and then everyone follows a curriculum, which sounds amazing because life would be wonderful, but it doesn't work like that, right? Because everybody learns and progresses differently. So what I love about having a school now is weekly sitting down and writing down the student, pros, cons, and where I believe I need to help them learn the most at this time. Now, what I've noticed over the last 5 years, unfortunately 4 years, is that those lists don't have much about horseshoeing anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because no one understands being proactive, critical thinking, manners, professionalism. Like, there's so many things now that the kids are not taught.
Wow.
Right? And the kindergartners have Chromebooks now. They can't write.
Wow.
You know, so I don't get to teach much horseshoeing anymore. I use horseshoeing to teach people how to be better people and retain information.
Wow.
That's literally my job now.
Wow.
So
that's super sad.
Yeah, it's just different. And I think what it's going to take now is I think it's opportunity in today's world that you have to even though I was raised in a non-internet life, thank the Lord there was no GPS when I was a child. Because knowing my parents, I probably wouldn't be here if I'd have got caught. So, you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, I did some terrible things as a child. So I think too now it's just on us that choose to try to show someone a trade that'll feed their family the rest of their life to be better, understand the situation that they came from, and put them in a position to succeed in Farrier.
Wow.
Right? And so now I find myself in the days that I got two young men that came to school in I think 2008 and 2009 or 2009 2010 right there, and they never left. So they knew old Dusty, like grab you by the shirt and throw you against the wall and talk to you, in not a really nice way when you didn't do what I said. So old me, you know,
right?
Toss you down in the corner and put a rasp in your eye socket and say, "Now can you hear me?" Like, am I speaking now? Is there something you can understand me with? Like, so that was 2007 to 2010, you know, guy. Right. And so to now they make fun of me. Oh, what happened to you? You've lost your passion. You're soft, you know. First of all, I'm old, and it hurts a lot worse now the next day. But no, secondly is that as you grow older and you get educated yourself, and the great thing about this trade is the more you give, the way more you learn.
Right.
And people don't think about that. You know, it's interesting that people that call me to do stuff, and the first question they ask me is, how much do you charge? Right? So those are the honest, in my mind, I'm thinking, I understand that it's important. That money is important. I get it. Like, we have to have it. But if you're more worried about what it's going to cost you than what you're going to get from it, I don't know if I'm your man anymore.
Right.
You know, because, you know, and so I think that for me, where I am at in my life right now is I feel like that I've been moved and changed in a way through Jesus Christ, through opportunity, things like that, to help young people today be not better people. I don't think anyone gets up in the morning really to be terrible. I really don't. I think that what's happened to a lot of people is they've been let to have excuses, right? And to live at the bottom of the hill. They slid down, and so they're like, oh man, this is, I guess, where I'm at.
Right.
Instead of looking up and climbing again.
Right.
Right. And so I want to teach them how to climb. You know, I want to teach them how to wake up and work on what they're terrible at that day and not what they're good at. So if I don't do that stuff, how would they ever? Because people ask me all the time, why are you still competing? Like, I was alternate for the WCB team last year at my old age. You know what I meant? You know, I still want to go. I still go to all the local stuff, you know, and because if that group doesn't see me going, why would they ever think it's important?
I have to say, last year this year was different. I've been in here doing some podcasting, which has been amazing. But last year was my first year, and they have those little stations, the hands-on stations, and I signed up. Paul walked me over and he goes, "Sign up." Yeah. And I guess I could have said no, but Paul's pretty convincing when he wants you to do something, you know. And he's kind of like that. Like, he has your best interest at heart. He might pick on you a little bit. He might, you know, he'll look at me and go, "Hit that like you mean it. Stop, you know." But your students were at those workshops, and I think I didn't. They were by far and above the most common. I don't think I was at a workshop where there wasn't one of your students there.
Yeah.
And you encouraged them
Yep.
to do that, and and that's a testament to, and to your point, even like with your parenting, you show your students where to go.
Yep.
And I think people have I was raised super Christian. I always joke with people I had a drug problem. They drugged me to him. I got drugged every Sunday morning to church, okay? You know, and now, and I had some bad experiences there. You know, we talked a little bit about that. I struggled. I still struggle with church. And I think it's because of what you stated, is that you show people
Yep.
where to go, and you show them your mistakes, and you're big enough to admit,
Yep.
like you're like, I started here. And I think maybe that's the thing. It's all a journey.
For sure. I learned probably some of the most important things that I teach now, I learned from a young kid. He'd gone to Kentucky Horseshoeing School. He's from middle of Africa somewhere. He'd come over to go to school and then got an apprenticeship here, so he didn't have to go right back. And he flew in, picked him up, and we drove 8 hours up to a contest together, him and I. And man, I learned more about life, gratefulness, grace, mercy, all the things you could think of, every amazing term you can think of from this young man in that weekend. You know, and one of the coolest things that I got out of that I incorporate now all the time is, and I try to teach students all the time, is like, if someone is building a bridge for you over a river, why would you choose to swim?
Right.
Why would you not listen? They built it for you. Like, they gave you all the keys to the castle, and you're swimming around in the moat. You know, like, think about that. Like, when someone gives you their soul, so like, it goes down to even when I do a demo for them, and I get there the next day, and I said, hey, you guys, how'd it go? You know, and they're like, oh, well, I went and made lunch, or, you know, whatever. You know, I don't force them to do anything, right?
Right.
So then it comes down to, and I tell them all first day, like, when I quit talking to you, then that means I gave up on you. Now, that's after 50 chances. I'm not going to give you one chance and walk away. I gave you 50 chances, and you chose to keep swimming the same river. Right. And so you never walked across the bridge I gave you, right? So I'm build bridges for somebody else. You know? So then a lot of times they're like, wait, hold on. I was like, it's sad that you paid, or your grandparents paid, or your parents paid, or this is your college fund, and you're choosing to not take advantage of it. Right. You know, somebody around you has worked hard for you to be here if it wasn't you. So I don't understand your thought process.
That goes back to not having been taught to appreciate the things you have.
Yeah,
we see when I was in college, we saw that with FAFSA all the time. You know, so kids, low income kids, the ones that should appreciate it the most. Yep. And I was never. I say low income. We were never. I never thought of us as poor. We always had food. We were always fed. There was never had a problem there. And then I went to college. You know, I was homeschooled, so I didn't go very many places, and I was that awkward kid. And I get to college, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, and they're like, well, what kind of TV do you have? And I'm like, I don't know. It's big and heavy. Yeah. And the color ain't so good. And it's got a screen that's like a foot wide.
Back on it.
Yeah. And the back on the, you know. Yeah. And then I started to realize, you know, we just didn't have all the fluff. Yeah. And I don't know that that's such a bad, like, you walk into people's house. I saw that, I was talking to a cop about that. He goes, you know, we didn't see as many home invasions 20 years ago because there was nothing to steal. Yeah. He goes, you know, silver or silverware, you know, certain houses. But, you know, you walk into the average American's home and they had one TV. Yeah. You know, and some furniture. Yep. And they were all heavy. Yep. And now you walk into a house. I mean, there's $5,000 of
right here in one armful.
Yeah. Yep. But I never thought of us as poor, and it wasn't until I got out, and so now we, you know, in college with the FAFSA stuff, the kids that should have been like, oh, this is my shot. Yeah. You'd watch them, They'd show up for the first, second day of class. You walk out in the lobby, they'd be sitting in the lobby during class.
Yep.
And it's like, dude, this is it. This is all you got.
Yeah.
And opportunity, I think people miss that. Opportunity don't knock twice a lot of times.
Nope. A guy down at was eating dinner down at the bar with everyone 2 nights ago, and I heard a gentleman say that young people today are more worried about their time off than what they get to do at work.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Oh man, that run over me like a truck.
Time off is the most valued as an employer today. Time off. They did a study on it.
Yeah.
People value time off more than money.
Yeah. Yeah, it was unbelievable. I just couldn't think more opposite than that.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And
interesting.
And the time and along with that, millennial and the generations coming up value experiences, not experiences more than they do money. So my wife and I go out to dinner once a month, maybe, just to, and we're very blessed to be able to do that, really. That, as kids, we went to dinner. I can count,
Yep.
The times that we went to dinner as kids.
Yep.
But today they'll take their last $150 and go down and buy a meal at the fancy restaurant and worry about what happens later.
They can take pictures of it and post it on social media.
Yeah. And we live our lives in front of everyone.
Yep.
I was that was a conversation we had with I think it was, I can't remember who I was having this with, but we're the heroes of our own story. Each one of us feels like we're the hero of our own story. And I think if you can get past that and realize you're an actor, an extra, and maybe you're not the most important thing at that moment. What do you want to do? What's your goal from here on out? Where do you want to
definitely.
go?
I think my fellowship, my FWCF, coming from a guy that the story's funny. I was helping. I'm on the forging endorsement committee, right? And so it's me and Mike Poe, who's an extremely educated, man, very, very intelligent man, and Daniel Jones and Craig Stark. And so anyway, I did the shoe board over there. We all started out judging the FE shoes, and anyway, I moved around, and Mike went over where I'd been, and he's smiling, and he goes, "Dusty, I love you." And I said, "Yes, sir, I do." He goes, you held up a fishtail bar shoe. He goes, "This is not a tale about a fish. It's the tale of a fish," looks like, because I had put TALE instead of TIL. So I'm a very uneducated person. I barely got out of high school. I had to take summer school every year, and then don't have any college degree or anything like that. So I don't know much. I don't know how to punctuate a sentence or anything of that at all. And anyway, so to be able to go through and pass like the AWCF, and you hear people pains hurt all the time, right? Tease me about, I just learned to read about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, so to be able to put it on my heart to do my fellowship has gotten pretty important to me. Number one, because it's obviously an amazing exam and to show dedication to the trade.
Right.
And but also personally for someone like me, hopefully if I can achieve that goal, that's just a testament to anybody can do it.
Right.
And so I like it's interesting, like I said it this morning, was all those teams I was on, we were raising 3 kids and out of school.
Wow.
So when I hear guys are like, I just can't, I just don't have time to practice or this and that, but no, you do. It's a choice.
Right.
I would get up at 4:30, be at the shop at 5 every morning and make shoes till we left at 7, every day. And then, work like a madman and fly somewhere Friday to work with someone.
Right.
That was better than me. And so you can choose to, and I would do everything from 4 to 7 in the morning because my kids had practice at night.
Oh.
So I wouldn't miss practice or games. Right? So everybody was asleep at those times. So those are the times I chose to do my stuff.
How many hours a night do you sleep?
If I go 6, I do real good. I like to have 8. But I was raised in a family where like my mom drove a handicap bus for 33 years. So she left the house at 4:45 every day from when I lived at home. And then what my dad would do is, as a farrier, you can't shoot horses till it's light.
Right.
So he would get up with her and go substitute bus driver every morning during the school year, and that paid his truck payment every month. And then when he got back to the bus barn after the morning route, then it was light enough, he'd go shoot the rest of the day.
Wow.
Right? And so he shot a lot of very low-end horses, so a lot of his horses, too, were after 5 o'clock. So it was nothing for him to get home at 10.
Right.
You know, I can remember him picking me up from school at 3:30, and we'd go shoot 10.
Wow. Wow.
You know, I like to be at the shop and done at 3:30.
Right.
You know, for me. So I would do all stuff for me in the mornings, and then have them in the afternoon.
How do you structure your day now? What?
Oh, we usually get to the shop and leave by 7:30. Depends. You know, if it's going to be 100 that day, we'll leave early. You know.
So like, but when you get up, do you have a morning ritual, and then you?
I'm a real proactive person. You know, so like my clothes are laid out. You know, what I have for breakfast is either got already thought out in the deal or ready. I'm the type of guy when I cook, when I sit down to eat, the kitchen's already cleaned. Okay. Besides what I have, you know. Stacy's an amazing cook. Unreal, but it literally looked like Betty Crocker throws up in there, you know, when she does toast. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it looks like we fed 38 people. So just different like that. But that's the morning for me. Just put Baisley outside, you know, take a big deep breath. I don't sit down in the mornings like I should.
And Baisley's your dog?
Yeah, Baisley's my dog, yeah. So my parents had dogs growing up, and they were terrible. And they still have dogs that are terrible. And they bark, and they pee on the floor. So I think Cassidy was a freshman in college, or maybe a sophomore now. I can't remember, but I came up from doing a clinic and got home on a Sunday, and they had this tiny little puppy. And they both knew it was coming. They were on the couch when I walked in the door, and I saw that dog, and I said, "What is that?" They're like, "This is our new dog, Baisley." And I was upset. I was like, she's played college basketball. Like, she's a college athlete, going to school. We both work, right. You know, like, we don't have time for a dog. I was mad. This is a poor life choice. Well, I just threw a typical Dusty fit, you know. And so anyway, long story short, so everybody makes fun of me now, but I honestly did not know that dogs picked people. I didn't know that was a thing. And this dog picked me. And man, I tell you, I said it this morning, I would lay in there for a day, won't be able to get off the floor of the bathroom for a day, getting sick, and that dog would not leave me. Wow. Literally would not be where she didn't have a paw on me or lay her head on me when I'm laying there. Like, if anything happens with a horse, shoeing all day, she's here touching my hand. Are you okay?
Wow.
Like, sleeps in the bed right next to me. Like, just a friend, just a great friend. Like, talk to her, like, you know, whatever else, and she goes. And now, don't you think she's that loyal? I got a video, so I'm gone right now. So Stacy has her while I'm gone, and Stacy calls herself Baisley's spare human. And but my dad and her, so she went with Logan because she would just have to sit at the house all day because Stacy's teaching, so she's used to going all day long.
Right.
And so Logan took her Monday, Tuesday. Well, then Stacy's Ring camera, I get a video, and it's when my dad stopped by to get her. She's going crazy. You know, my dad's there, you know, so excited. And even when it's hot in the summer, so I have a gooseneck shoeing trailer from Promised Land Manufacturing. Yeah. It's a great shoeing rig. So she rides in the back of the truck all day. So it can be 108 in the back of the truck, or 8 degrees. She rides in the back of the truck. Right. And but when in the summer, when my dad's shoeing with us, and we go to everybody's packing up, well, she goes over there to his truck because he lets her ride in the back seat with air conditioning on. It's all softy now. But anyway, she's been a godsend. You know, she's 4 now, and you know, she just, yeah. It's funny how dogs are amazing. If we all treated each other like your dog treats you, imagine how amazing the world would be.
If we could be happy too.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. I walk out for 30 seconds and come in, it's like I've been gone a year. Right. Just go crazy, you know, and right. Hey, how you been? And just stare at you, you know, and And I gotta watch her. Like, she's good protector around the pickup. Like, I gotta watch her when people like paying around the truck. I gotta be like, hey, she learned now. She doesn't try to bite anybody like anymore. She'll come around now, and sit down between me and them, and watch them.
Wow. What kind of dog is she?
Well, Mutt. She's the first. I know she was a baby. She was a white lab, was the mom, because they were still on the mom when they got her. And then the vet said she's either blackmouth cur or Anatolian shepherd.
Oh, okay.
And people can see both. I say that, and they're like, "Oh, I see," or "I see," but she's just a mutt. That's all she is. But she's definitely a good friend, and she's been real good to me. Like, like I said, she's it's funny.
How old is she now?
She was 4 in September.
Oh. I got a little 2-year-old black lab.
Yeah.
His first dog. So my wife bought me a dog, and we had cow dogs, and the cow dogs are not, especially working dogs. They're not. I mean, and there's some that are really good, but as a whole, they're kind of like I call them crackheads. They're just gone. And my little black lab will just. I'll be sitting somewhere, and he'll just come and lay his head and just stare at you like, what are you doing?
Same thing with her.
Hey, and he goes every day in the truck. I saw something on the Farrier 101 page or whatever, and somebody asked the question, is it acceptable to bring your dog with you to work? And I was kind of insulted by some of those guys' statements about, I was like, I couldn't, like I shoot by myself all the time. I couldn't, like my little dog is just a big part of my day. Yep. I get in the truck and I pet him and we go places together, and he knows when we get to the coffee shop that he can con the girls out of cookies.
Pup cup.
The pup cup.
Yeah.
My wife gets so mad at me.
Yeah, when we pull in a Starbucks, Kat basically knows what's up. Starbucks, man. She is like, open this window now, sucker, because I know what's coming. And I better get mine first. But I've never, honestly, I've had one person say something about having her there. And I'm always real respectful of a new customer. Like, hey, I carry a dog. And she just is fine to stay in the back of the truck. And actually, I leave the tailgate down at stops, because if they have dogs that she doesn't, that won't leave her alone or whatever, she'll just go get in the back of the truck.
Right.
She's real good that way. And I always carry a diesel. I always run a diesel pickup. So even in the summer, if she's uncomfortable, I can just turn the truck on, the AC, and put her in the back seat.
Right.
And so, and at restaurants, I'll do that. If it's hot, instead of her sitting out there in the sun, I'll leave the truck running, and she just sits in the back seat. But and that was it. I just asked her. I said, "Well, I'm sorry." Like, she goes, "Well, I just don't know if it's real professional." Like, some people said that you brought a dog to work, and I just said, "I understand where you're coming from. It makes you uncomfortable. I'm more than happy to put her in the pickup." She goes, "No, I mean, she's obviously a good dog, and she's not going to run the horses or anything, But I've only had one. And then one day at a stoplight, it was like 105 this summer, and a lady rolled her window down, and she was pretty, said some pretty terrible things to me because my dog was in the back of the truck,
Yeah.
And in my old age, I just told her, I said, "Ma'am, I'm just going to pray for you tonight when I get home." And that's all I said to her. Roll my window back up, so.
It's funny because I find this ironic, and I don't know. Maybe you've seen this change with horses too, but people don't understand stock.
No.
Like and I mean, my dog rides in the back of the truck. He does ride in the front. I've got a little bed for him because we get hot, and so if I'm at a stop and it's really bad, I do the same thing. I'll stick him in there, turn the AC on, but I had a client with a husky, and it snows a lot and she's like, "He won't come back in the house." I'm like, he's a husky. That's
bred
where
to be out there.
That he she goes, all he does is go out and bury himself in the snow. I'm like, that's what he wants. You're like putting him inside with a fire on, and he's like, "Oh, I'm dying in here."
Yep.
And I think horses have become more pets.
Oh, 100%. It's funny you say that, because everyone gets on Arabs. They say, "Oh, Arabs are terrible, and they're terrible horses." They're not terrible horses. Arabs are beautiful horses. So a lot of non-horse people buy them because they're beautiful.
Oh.
And then they don't know how to treat horses, so the horse gets a bad name.
Oh,
It's no different than natural balance shoes. It's so funny when I'll be at a clinic and they're like, "We hear you hate natural balance." I said, "Absolutely not. I use PLRs like crazy. It has to be the right circumstance." So what I don't like about that shoe is when everybody shoes every horse with that shoe.
Right.
Right. So then the shoe gets a bad name.
When it's a
beautiful round.
It's a patch, fix-all patch.
Yeah, it's just a scapegoat because somebody doesn't know how to trim or fit. So And then, but I think that's the same thing with Arabs. I think that one of my good friends shoes racehorse that are Arabs, and like they've flown this horse to like Saudi Arabia and from Silver City, New Mexico, of all places.
Right.
You know, and like it's pretty amazing that this horse is it's purebred Arabian. And it's one of the fastest horses in the world.
Really?
Yep. And then I don't know if you ever knew, but Patrick Swayze was a huge showed horses huge.
Really?
From up in Washington, and they were all Arabs.
Really?
Cutters. Big time. Yep.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yep. So I don't know. Every breed has its characteristics, you know. It's pretty cool. The AFA is changing the written test again, and they are putting in. There's going to be 5 or 6 breeds that you need to know characteristics of now added to the written. Yep.
Will that be on the? I mean,
it'll be. I think we have it 2026. We're going to submit all the tests, and then it'll be probably a year before we go through all the questions and then put the.
Will it be CFN, CJF, or?
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's fun. So I just passed my journeyman written, and I was talking to someone, and I said they're going to do this test, and I plan to, like you said, I'm going to stay in Todd Hanel's group because I feel like if I get on there 2 or 3 days a week, and I listen, and if I can, and the hard part is he's in Texas, so he's at 6:30 Texas time, but it's 4:30 my time. Yeah. So in the summer, I'm still.
Yeah.
But I'll tell clients, like I've told clients, I'm like, I'm sorry, like, because I talk to them and you know, but that's a lot of our job.
Yeah.
The number one reason I think farriers are fired is because of personality conflict.
Absolutely. No one horse owners have zero idea what good horseshoeing is.
Right.
Zero. Like, and you know, it's funny how they use you for you. That's why I've never known anyone to sell their farrier business and the guy that bought it make it. Not one time. Right. Usually he's gone through all the customers, and within a year he's not even shown 2 of the customers that the 100 that he paid for. Because it's the person that makes it. Everybody asks me, like, what are you going to do with your school when you retire? Well, I'll close it. You're not going to sell it. It could bring a lot of money. Yeah, but I've worked really hard to have it, the name that it has. And someone that buys the school and hasn't put forth the effort that I put forth in it is never going to treat it like I did. So it's not going to make it. Because I've never known a school that was sold that made it.
Let's we can wrap up with this. If you could pick what you want your legacy to be, what do you want it to be?
Oh, 100% a good human.
That's what you...
Yeah, he always gave away way more than he took. That would be great to be at my funeral and have you guys walk by there and be like, thanks for all you gave me.
Wow.
And not asking for anything in return.
Wow.
That would be a goal that I think if there is a afterlife and you could look down and see yourself, you know, whatever, you know, I think that would be a pretty amazing thing because horseshoeing's an amazing trade. It saves so many lives. You know, my dad wouldn't be here today wasn't for horseshoeing from PTSD in Vietnam. And guys, it's saved so many people that struggle mentally every day, man. The little battles that you win as a farrier, like that frog on that left front was really good on that first horse I shot today. So they're going to live one more day.
Wow.
You know what I mean? That's what horseshoeing does for so many people. And I think that, yeah, just having that to where I really tried to live my whole life, whether I got showing horses or farrier or whatever, hopefully now moving more into teaching people about Jesus and things like that. I think that all of this has just been one step after another of, like I said, we're just vessels of information, right? So if you know that everything that you soak in and learn doing these podcasts, when you do podcasts, I hope it helps you regurgitate what you feel is important for the next person to hear out in the world.
Right.
That's my thought process. You know, like we were talking on the way here, how this is the future, right?
Right.
So, man, to me, this is what an opportunity to maybe build a bridge for someone so they won't have to swim a river.
Wow.
And so that's how I would answer that.
You have selfishly, these have been amazing for me because I feel like I didn't get to see as many classes as I did last year. I went and sat in on a lot of stuff, and I didn't do that this year because I was sitting in here with people.
Yeah.
But I feel like I got just as much out of this as I would have maybe I missed some things, but I found some other things. And honestly, I'm walking away from probably every podcast that I've done this week inspired to go home and do better. And I think this is probably one of the, sitting here talking to you has probably inspired me the most of every podcast I've done this week.
Well, thank you for that.
So I cannot thank you enough for coming on here and taking your time and talking to me. If anybody wants to check out Dusty, he's on at Dusty Franklin. He's on Facebook. Are you on Instagram?
No, I'm an old man. I have a thing on my phone talking about that. Garrett Stark actually showed me. I have a thing now where after 20 minutes of social media, it cuts off for 4 hours.
Oh.
So I found that what I challenge my students to do is they write down every hour of the day a block.
Yeah.
And every hour, and I want them to write down what they want to achieve in the 12 hours of the day that they have every day. And what it does is it makes people realize how much of that's on their phone. And,
I'm the worst.
And so I think that if a person writes it down and sees it, I know you can, on your phone, it comes up with screen time, average per day and all that. So I noticed that I was pushing almost 3.5 hours a day on my phone. It was terrible. And so my goal was to get that to less than an hour. Wow. And so I think that, I think that's a pretty good thing. I just do Facebook.
Do you find that with that, with the 20 minutes, you find you're using Facebook more effectively and efficiently?
Yeah, I think I went through my friends list and I really chose the path of things that are important to me at the time. And but Facebook's funny. I deleted because of the election. I had the opportunity to rid myself of a lot of people, and so I don't mind. I don't care if you voted for the whatever her name is, Kamala, or you voted for Trump, but it's how you conducted yourself about it that made me choose. And so people that were nasty disappeared.
Right.
I don't need that in my life.
Right.
If you're respectful. Hey, I talked to Eli Hernandez the other day, and he openly put on there that he's voting for Kamala, and somebody asked him why, and his answer was very thought out and very polite. No qualms at all against that, right? But there was about 120 people that Wednesday afterwards that were being terrible people.
Yeah.
So I just chose not to have that with me anymore, and so
it's not.
But now I've gotten 80 friend requests because I think because I already had 5,000.
Right.
And so I got rid of all those, and I guess it opens up in the feed or the loop. If you have mutual friends, it puts on there. I must have come up on friends to be with or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, interesting. But that's what I have is Cody did set me up an Instagram account years ago, but I don't know how to do it, and so I don't know how to get it or whatever. I don't even have it on there, but So I'm gonna believe that's what I have. If you text me or I do Facebook.
Okay.
And the reason I always did Facebook because I talked to a lot of my international farriers on Messenger.
Yeah, it actually works really well. You can actually FaceTime there too, because it's Wi-Fi and you're not trying to make an international call. Social media has done insane, immeasurable damage to human interaction and the human condition as a whole. And then at the same time, it is one of the most amazing tools if used properly.
Yeah.
And I think
like natural balance shoes.
Oh boy. I don't know which is more controversial, the election or natural balance shoes, and I think we better close on that.
That'd be a long podcast.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man.
Thank you again.
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
And we'll catch you all next time.